Folks, I called it about 6 or 8 weeks ago that we are going through a refi boom. We have had 7 weeks in a row of purchase applications increasing. I unfortunately think this demand increase has run into a huge constraint, and that constraint is people. The mortgage industry has been in a depression for 2 years. The mortgage industry has lost somewhere between 50 and 60% of the headcount. This means, at least in the short term, lending is going to get harder, exceptions are going to get less. And I think it is crazy to say it, but the mortgage industry is understaffed, and nobody saw this coming. We're going to have this conversation with Mr. Stephen Dow from Velocity Mortgage, who has been in the mortgage industry for decades. But before we get started, do the marketing spiel.
Thanks, Mike. Again, although I've worked very happily for Velocity Mortgage Capital, all the ideas and topics discussed on this channel that are my own. So let's get another good one going.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty wild to think about. So I saw the refi boom coming, called it, nailed it. But what I missed was the second order effect. All of this increased refi demand into an ever slow, slightly more purchase demand into a community of half the people.
Right.
It just means lenders have to get tighter. Lenders have to be more picky. Lenders are going to say no a lot more often. Is that what's happening?
I mean, it just depends on the lender, I believe, because, certain tactics that they maybe, execute, it makes it look like they're just getting tighter, but sometimes either they're running out of money or other, back office kind of issues. But to be honest, you're almost never properly staffed in the mortgage industry just because of the ebb and flow with what rates do to you so suddenly and sometimes violently that it's like feast or famine sometimes, right? And so it's really hard to be properly staffed, but you would be correct right now because we'd had such a long period where rates had jumped up so high that it just refi all business just fell off the side of a cliff. You had some stragglers with the purchases. Those have started to slow down a little bit, starting to pick up a little bit, but that's, I think, a slower tick than what they were maybe expecting.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, it has to do with people and behaviors. And I think a lot of psychology where obviously with a lot of turmoil going on right now, uneasy feelings about how this election year is going to, play out and stuff. So I think that has a lot to do with it because, again, I don't know if people are waiting to see what the Fed's going to do after the election as well, like how drastic they might make a move. Maybe there's going to be some, bigger drastic moves to the market. So I don't know, people are just kind of waiting for that, to kind of play out because, I'm starting to feel a little bit of that. I mean, yeah, that's kind of my gut feeling, though.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I talk to a lot of mortgage people every week, and this was like really the first week where a lot of them started to talk about Wall Street, right? A lot of these people have funds that they're feeding loans to. And for a longest time, because I deal with the CEOs and the presidents, right? I deal with the guys at the top, and they're telling me that all they had to do before was call them and they'd get an exception. Those exceptions are gone. Something else I'm hearing about Wall Street. Again, this is Wall Street. This is not Velocity. Wall Street guys, not Velocity. But they have so much demand and so few people that they're raising their threshold. They're creating a tighter box because they only want to work on the profitable deal. So what does that mean for somebody who wants to borrow money? No exceptions, larger loan amounts. Like there was a time last year where Wall Street would buy $100,000 loans. I just heard from a guy this morning that they want 200,000 because those little loans are not profitable and the little loans don't close as often, right? Because the buyer gets cold feet or whatever. So they're just whacking whole sloughs of loans because they have this huge capacity problem. The feast or famine thing that you highlighted is so right. Right now, it's so wild. The mortgage industry is in a depression. But you know what? You have half as many people. So you don't have to go to a very big buffet to stuff yourself. That's what's going on right now. They have more demand than they know what to do with.
I think so, because again, there's going to be, obviously several lenders earlier this year kind of closed, their doors as well as last year. So, even less players to some degree and a slightly higher demand. But like you said, it's just kind of a weird situation right now where the industry is slightly understaffed because of the flow of people going out, where businesses
Yeah.
dropped off, people still need to, pay their bills, stuff. So they pivoted and went on to other, industries and whatnot. So yeah, it's just hard to be properly staffed in the world of mortgages, especially on the A paper side when it's tied into the 10-year treasury and that jumps like
Yeah.
up and down and sometimes multiple times, during the, in one day. So
In one day.
yeah,
Yeah. Multiple
yeah. So
repricings in a day. Yeah.
yeah, so it's really difficult. But right now, like you said, yeah, there's going to be that small little window where the transition period gets a little tough until
Yeah.
they either get,
Yeah. Yeah,
more
again, this is,
staff
this
or
is,
whatever.
this is just how rolling recessions work, right? Mortgage got hit
Right.
first, got hit the hardest. It's now
Hmm.
coming out. I suspect in the next 90 days, certainly in the next 180 days, the mortgage industry in total will grow. How much it will grow, I don't know, but it will grow. You can't turn away demand forever, right? You're going to add bodies, you're going to add headcount, processors, originators, all of that.
Right.
I guess the one thing I wanted to ask Velocity, because you're one of my guys, we have some Wall Street lenders saying they're not going to do DSCR loans below 200 grand. So
Hmm.
what are kind of the minimums today for Velocity? Have they changed? What's going on?
No, we've held pretty steady. We know that in some cases, you sometimes got to get through some of the small ones to maybe get to the big ones as far as loan amount size. So we actually on the residential side, we'll go down to 75,000. And on the
Okay.
commercial side, I can go down to 100,000. But even lower than that, whereas if you're doing blanket loans on residential properties, 1 to 4 unit non-owner residential, in any combination, that's where you can now go down to 50,000 per property in value. So we're still, kind of doing those types of loans because I think for us in the bigger picture, it still, kind
Yeah.
of pencils out.
Yeah. I think that's really important because again, there's a lot of people that are investing in the Midwest where the purchase price is, in the hundreds, not, you're not going to get a 200K loan when the purchase price is 150. So
No,
when Wall Street raises the DSCR limit from 100 to 200, they're taking out 30% of the country.
right,
And that just means, in this case, Velocity is there to help because you still have those lower limits.
right, right. So I mean, again, no lender can be everything to everybody. So
No.
we kind of
Yeah.
try to provide a particular service where we found it was underserviced. So um, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting times to be in right now. I think just being alive in general right now,
Yeah.
and just the specific, geopolitical events that are going around worldwide, and it's just not trying to sound like a doomer, but it's just like, man,
Man, lots of
it's
stuff, huh?
lots of stuff to be existing in this world right now. But specifically to the mortgage industry, yeah, it's a little bit of a transition period, growing
You're
pains
back
to
into
some
growth
degree when
mode.
you
Yeah. No,
yeah, you
you're
know what I
adding
mean?
people.
So that right. And so then now it's like, hey, calling back to people that you might let go. Hopefully they didn't find another job. You know what I mean? And then restaffing again and then revamping back up. And then sometimes by doing that right when you're fully staffed, ready to hit the ground running, rates just go, shoot through the roof. And now you're like, oh, now those people sitting around, with their thumb, fiddling their thumbs. And so it's hard to be more owner of a mortgage company. I can assure you that. So it's just hard to be properly staffed. But if you got a good crew, most of the people can pivot a little bit and kind of wear different hats and such.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with
Well,
you. I'm
let's do
starting to
one
see some
more
of that.
let's do one more definition. You talked about the blanket loan. You and I
Yes,
obviously know what that is, but let's define that for the audience because there might be somebody out there that's buying three, four, five homes. So tell them what a
hmm
blanket loan is.
a blanket loan, or what they would also call a portfolio loan, is where you could do multiple properties under this one mortgage or one loan. So in any combination of 1 to 4 unit type properties. So say you have two duplexes, a single family, and a triplex, and all are under 100,000, but they're all being sold under one package. Then we could definitely do that one loan and finance all of those properties all under one loan. So
Yeah.
for us, it just all has to be in the same state, preferably same county, and then all from the same seller, of course, and at least a minimum 50,000 per property as far as value. So it's a
Yeah.
pretty low bar that we set it at. So um, it's been helpful for a lot of people where I had to do that kind of smaller deal. It was like I think 11, 12 package
Mm.
blanket, but then yeah, he refinanced that and then pulled money out to buy several more properties. So you can do it for both refinances and purchases. But yeah, that's been pretty helpful in the smaller markets, Midwest,
Yeah.
kind of areas like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Again, blanket loans, portfolio loans, 90% LTV loans, CLTV loans,
CLTV. Yes, sir.
CLTV, combined loan to value. There's lots of stuff that Velocity does for the community. Steven, if somebody wanted to reach out, see if you could help them, how would they do that?
Email is always going to be the best. That's going to be SDAO at Velocity, the word mortgage spelled out, .com. In the subject line, please put the acronym ORAAT to make it past the firewall. Body of the email, maybe a brief description, what you're looking for. Property address would be great. Your mid FICO score. And of course, the best phone number to reach you at, and typically 24, 40 hours. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. Talk next week.
Thanks, Mike.